Morning, everybody. So my name is Guangying Liu Guangying. I'm a reporter at Commonwealth Magazine. I cover energy, transportation, climate change, and among other things. So it's really a pleasure for me today to be hosting today's event and joined by such a distinguished panel of really the leading giants coming from all corners of the world. So why are we talking about transportation and cycling and how this industry can be leading a net zero transition? So I just did some research and I realized that transportation sector actually accounts for over 1/3 of global CO2 emissions. And road transportation actually is responsible for over 3/4 of that. So cycling can really play a very proactive role in our net zero transition. So I'm really honored to be joined by a really distinguished panel here. So first of all, let me introduce our panel speakers today. So the first one is John Burke, the president of Trek Bicycle from Madison, Wisconsin.
Yep.
Okay. Okay, and we have somebody from Europe. Let's welcome Beat Zaugg, the CEO of Ska Sports from Bern, Switzerland. And we have Mr. Taizo Shimano, the president of Shimano Inc. from Osaka, Japan. Last but not least, our host today, Ms. Bonnie Chu, the chairperson of Giant Group. Okay, so to start off, we are going to talk about COP. There's a upcoming COP, UNFCCC climate change conference coming up in Egypt very soon in a month. So I think decarbonization and transportation are going to be among the hot topics that people are going to talk about. So I would like to address what kind of proactive role can the bike industry or the cycling industry play in creating sustainable cities. So I would like to share some of my personal experience. I just came back from a 3-month fellowship in Berlin. And in Berlin, really the past few years, people have really adopted cycling as their mode of transportation. I have so many friends who would cycle maybe half an hour or 1 hour to work every day, even in snowing weather. And you know, in Berlin could get really, really cold. And some of the main streets in Berlin city center or even in Paris, they have converted the streets into cycling only or pedestrian only streets. So I would like to ask our speakers today, what's your idea on how a cycling industry can play a very important role in the net zero transition? So first of all, may I ask John to contribute?
Yeah, I think that's a great story about Berlin. And I think one of the things that we can do in the bike industry is if we can create safe places for people to ride their bikes, more and more people will ride. So if you go to Copenhagen or if you go to Amsterdam, you will see an amazing amount of people riding their bikes. So if you judge a trip, going to school, going to the grocery store, going to a restaurant, going to a friend's house, if you're in Copenhagen, 35% of trips are taken by bicycle. If you're in Amsterdam, it's 25%. If you're in the United States, it's 1%. And that's very much like the rest of the world. And you know, this morning I went out for a run. And you know, it's a lot of cars here. And so I think one of the great things for the bicycle industry is how can we influence government policy? So many governments are looking for a solution to climate change, but they're busy people. And it's up to us to have a voice, to talk to our representatives and to show them that this already exists. It exists in Copenhagen, it exists in Berlin, And the more we can do that in an organized way, I think we'll make a lot of progress in a short period of time.
Thank you, John. And next, can we welcome Beat to contribute? Like, how can we encourage more people to adopt cycling?
Yeah, thank you. Obviously, coming from Europe, I'm used to good cycling infrastructures, not only on the road, but also in our workplaces. So it's quite important that also in our offices, we have the necessary infrastructure. People can come to work by bicycle, take a shower, take a coffee at work, and then go in a daily experience at their workplace, have possibility to have lunch rides, or then in the evening with their work colleagues also experience sports together. I think really this mix of one side sport, on the other side commute, and be together with friends makes it really attractive. I think in Europe also what's very important is that we have some initiatives where we actually work together with railway companies, so they have infrastructure also on the railway station, because for people who have longer commutes or when the weather is not perfect, they can also use different sources of transport. And last but not least, I think more we can provide safe ways how to cycle, more people will be triggered to use a cycle. Sometimes I'm amazed when I'm talking to friends. Obviously, they feel quite safe on a mountain bike, but feel really not safe on a road bike because they have not been used to be on a road bike for quite a while. But I think you can have also accidents on a mountain bike. So to deliver and to provide a safe environment is probably also a big stumbling stone sometimes for people to use a bike.
Oh, thank you, Beat. So yeah, definitely we see a lot of the bike paths in the cities is also very important for encouraging people. And I would like to invite Bonnie to contribute. I had the pleasure to interview Bonnie a few years ago on the U-Bike program in Taipei City. So I think Bonnie can really say a few words on how can we encourage more people to adopt cycling as a means of transportation. So maybe you can also talk about how Giant employees at Giant are encouraged to also cycle.
You see, as a cycling enthusiast, I would love to use cycling as a means of transportation. But the problem we have, I think it is better in Taipei because of the infrastructure. In Taipei, we have so many cycling paths, but not outside of Taipei. I think even in Taichung, most of our colleagues are afraid of coming to this office by bike because we are facing thousands of motorcycles. I think the only way that the people will take up the cycling again as a commuting tools is to forbid the carbon emission devices to use the road. Just like, you see, years ago in Taiwan, most of the men and many women smoke. But now, the smoking population is so small. So as long as the government's regulation change, it will certainly, we're going to have a better environment for cycling. So please, everybody, let's request to the government. And the last but not the least, I will request from all of us I know many of you are working in the bike industry. Let's be more innovative, make more user-friendly commuting bike. Okay? It is our responsibility. Let's work together.
Thank you, Bonnie. You definitely make me want to get a road bike myself. Yeah, so maybe I can pick and choose today. So so infrastructure we see is very important, but what we're seeing around the world is that a younger generation is really becoming the new generation of consumers. They're making all different choices in life. So for example, again, in Europe, we see the restaurant menus, the vegan items really dominate the menu now. So if you want to have non-vegetarian options, you have to ask for it. And they give you a strange look when you do. So actually, yeah, so we're going to talk about how we are going to adopt a green strategy in dealing with the expectations of new generation of consumers, including the millennials and Generation Z. How are the cycling brands going to build up your brands to be sustainable brands for the young generation? And so maybe we can ask Mr. Shimano first. To maybe say a few words about this. So how can we build our new brands for the young generation of consumers?
まず最初に前提としましてですね、自転車というのはやっぱり楽しくなければいけないというのが私どものモットーであります。
So first of all, I would like to say that we want to make bicycle is something that's fun to ride and full of attraction.
そういう観点からもですね、Z 世代と言われる人たちの今の行動動向から見ると、物を直接買うというよりも、物はシェアリングする。で買うものにしたとしても、モバイルツールを通して、コネクティビリティを楽しむというような、バーチャルと、リアルが融合したような世界に生きてられると実感をしております。
So you can see that for the millennials or for the Generation Z, they like to share. And before they buying something, they always, use their mobile phone to check, to search for more information. And even after they buy something, they will share information with one another. So they're connected. So we have to do something two-in-one to combine the virtual and the reality together.
そういうものをですね、極力体感していただけますために、私どもは、大阪であったり、シンガポールであったり、オランダで、そういうエクスペリエンスができるようなセンターを構築していって、今の新しい世代の方々に、体験していただこうと。で、より自転車を好きになっていただこうという運動をずっと続けていっております。
So in order to achieve so, we have a lot of experience spaces. For example, we have similar the events hall in Osaka, Singapore, and also Holland. We try to put a story concept, everything together to make them to experience our bike in the center. We try to make everyone to experience, to sense the bicycling together in that space. And we want them to be, to like our bicycle better in the future.
そういうような体験型のですね、できるような機会を彼らにふんだんにですね、体験をしていただいて、そういうものをですね、世界中に徐々にでも広げていこうと、今は戦略を練りながら進めていっている最中です。
So once they just come to this kind of experiencing hall to join our event, I think they will becoming, like a bicycle better. And this is our plan. We will try to establish to make more experiencing hall, and we would like to, to have more fun for our bicycles.
Thank you, Mr. Shimano. So I hear some keywords: fun, experience, and share. And maybe I think Beat has something to say.
Yeah. Obviously, Generation Z is a challenge, I think, for all of us, because I think we have been grow up with the slogan, no pain, no gain. I think Generation Z sees that as a little different. They want to enjoy now. And obviously this is a challenge, but I think thanks to electric bike, we can provide also to them a product where they can have instant joy and have not too much pain. When we talk about sustainability, sometimes I'm thinking that they also take shortcuts. And as you know, probably Scott is no shortcuts. So by using too much Bitcoin, they also burn a lot of energy. What I mean by that, I think we have to see the complexity of our today's life and be critical, not only what probably is on the forefront, but what also is on the back end on our lifestyle. By the way, I'm not vegan.
Thank you, Beat. I'm glad you mentioned e-bikes because I had the pleasure of trying one of those myself, and I could say that you can really easily ride 10 kilometers without even sweating, so that's really a very different experience. So maybe, Scott, you would like to comment on how Trek can cater to a new generation of consumers.
I think when you take a look at Generation Z and you take a look at the younger generation, I have a couple of thoughts. One is they're going to inherit the planet, and they're much more conscious of the damage that's being done to the planet today. And the more that the bicycle industry can use the bicycle as this is a solution to a lot of our challenges, especially on the environmental front, I think the better off we'll be. I think the other thing, there's different places around the globe to look for different solutions. And we talked about cycling in Copenhagen and Amsterdam. There's something that's going on in the United States, and it's called NICA. And it's mountain biking for kids, mountain biking for grade schoolers, mountain biking for high schoolers. And there was a race in Wisconsin over the weekend, and there were 1,300 kids who showed up for one race. In Utah, there's over 7,000 kids as part of a high school mountain bike league. So imagine a product where you can take your kid, and there's no screens, there's no phones, they're outside, they get on a team, everybody makes the team, and they can play the entire game. That's what high school mountain biking and grade school mountain biking is about. There's a league that exists in the United States. It's turning a whole new generation of kids into cyclists, and that's something that I'm convinced could be adapted around the world if we got the industry behind it.
Okay, well, thank you, John. And so I would like to also invite Bonnie to contribute. I think in Taiwan, it's not very easy, I guess, to encourage the Generation Z. But I think Giant has been able to revolutionize itself for global consumers. So maybe Bonnie has a few things to say.
I think sustainability is, you cannot be just a superficial stickers on the products. It got to be penetrate into our core of our business, be authentic. Then our Generation Z will be our messenger provider to all the generations. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Bonnie. So I really think the young people who ride Giant bikes or Trek bikes or Scott bikes are all the best ambassadors for a new lifestyle. So yeah, we can all contribute in that. And So we're going to get serious into serious questions. So today we're celebrating 50 years anniversary of Giant Group. And I know that today also marks the launch of the Sustainability League of bicycles. So I would like to take this question to John to talk about, we know that the Trek bike launched its first ever sustainability report. It was also one of the best, one of the first in the bike industry. So could you tell us why it was the right time for such report, and what are the challenges the industry is facing, and what are you going to do to follow up on that?
And I think where our sustainability journey began is I was on a bike ride maybe 4 years ago with Rory Kennedy, and her uncle was President Kennedy. And she was filming a documentary on NASA, the space organization, as a tribute to her uncle. And it starts out, and it's called Above and Beyond. And if you haven't seen it, I would highly recommend it. And it starts out, and it talks about NASA, and it talks about the journey to space. And about a third of the way through the documentary, it comes to the conclusion that NASA knows more about the planet than anybody else. And so it really talks about what trouble the planet is in today. And it talks about where we are, and it talks about the negative trend. And so I spent some time with Rory, and she scared the hell out of me. And she said, somebody at NASA told her, they said, 10 years from now, people are going to ask you, with the great climate crisis, what did you do? And you will either answer that you did something or you didn't. And so I went back to Trek, and I got a bunch of people in a room, and we watched that documentary. And we decided we were going to make a difference. And one of the ways we decided we were going to make a difference was to publish a sustainability report. And we did that to hold ourselves accountable. Are we getting things done? And we also did it for the industry and for other companies to see this is what's possible. And Trek has a long way to go. We're just getting started. But I think that's what the sustainability report does.
Well, thank you, John. I think that deserves a round of applause. Yeah. So it's very important. So like we always say, if you want to lose weight, first of all, you have to have a weigh-in to know how much you weigh, and then you know how what you have to do, what you have to work on. And we also understand that, Bonnie, that the Giant Group is also working very hard in producing a sustainability report. Can you tell us where we are now and what is it expected to achieve?
You see, sustainability has been a topic in Taiwan's business circle for quite some time. And then, at that time, we watch most of the company, they are talking mostly about carbon neutral, buying the green lights from the other industry. So we've been studying, so what should we, the direction that we are going to? So as you know, that Giant always take a very different approach, and we always take a very hard one. So we have a holistic approach. So we study from our research, our manufacturing, our logistic, our distribution, and retailing. So we want to have a new approach. So that's why it takes us a long way before we really make the communication with the outside world. And then, of course, we built our internal group consensus. And then after that, we check all our carbon footprint. And then we find out, unless there's so small as a giant group single-handedly can do. So we need the so-called category 1, 2, and 3. That means all our vendors, all our suppliers to work with us, unless we can work together. Actually, what the giant single-handedly can do is very limited. And even just checking on what we can currently do is also very limited. That's why we need E3 to come to as a solution provider for us. And so that's why we have the bus. And we are not talking about how much we can cut the carbon emissions, because I think with the E3's help, support, we can really make a very different picture. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Bonnie. Yeah. So we can really see that the challenges are dire. So I'm just wondering if Beat or Mr. Shimano would like to comment or make any comments on that. As Mr. Shimano, yes, please.
シマノはですね、今年 ESG シートというものを発行いたしました。今、シマノがどのように ESG に取り組んでいるかというものをパブリックに発表させていただきました。
I think from this year we start to prepare our ESG sheet. We have already published our ESG sheet.
後々にですね、TCFD というものをですね、開示をして皆様にどのぐらいシマノが、そういうものに関心を持ち、どのようにアプローチをしていっていくのかということも、今準備をしている最中です。
And we're going to, now we're working on TCFD's disclosure. So while we prepare that, we could see that what kind of approach we could do and what is enough and what is something that we need to work harder on that.
基本的なですね、私どもの考え方はボニーさんが今言われたような形とほぼ同じで、大きなですね、目標を立ててそれを追いかけるというよりもできることからまずやっていこうということで、今そういうアプローチの仕方で、ベンダーだとかサプライヤーの方々にもこちらからですね、積極的に教育活動を行っている最中です。
So our basic process or basic way that we're doing is quite similar to what Bonnie just said, that we have a goal, and what we can do is, we cannot do everything only by ourselves. We have to work together with our vendors, suppliers, and we have to collaborate together. We have to have a big picture together, and then by doing so, we could achieve something even better in the future.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Shimano. And you would like to say something as well, Beat?
I think for me it was quite interesting to listen to IKEA, even when it's a different industry. And I think it was also very interesting to see the percentage of the different tasks that they have to such sustainability goals. And I think we also probably agree that material is one of the biggest topics we have in this industry. But I think internally in our companies, I think at least for me, the eye-opener was when we started with sustainability, it was more actually driven by marketing. But in today's world, it's really driven by product development and actually also from the bottom up, not from management down. I think management, we just have to provide the necessary room and also budgets that our young people in our organization can really be a big part of this change. And then only at the end, it's really something that we can communicate because we have really to be true to ourselves, to our industry, to our product, and then we can provide a product that really supports this climate change and give really good means to transportation issues and also have a healthier life.
Thank you, Beat. I think these are really important remarks, especially when climate emergency has become a hot topic, and really a lot of changes are driven bottom up instead of top down, and the new generation of consumers can really tell greenwashing from genuine campaigns. Yeah. So. Okay, and since you guys have touched on the issue of supply chain management, the next question is going to be a really challenging one, because we know that the manufacturing of bicycles really requires a lot of energy and maybe produces waste or pollution, and it often involves a huge supply chain, maybe even across different continents. So how do we mobilize the entire supply chain to reduce waste, reduce emissions, and as big brands and manufacturing brands like you guys have, what can we do? Because you may have to work with thousands of suppliers. Many of them might be small or even micro companies in different countries. So what are the challenges now of how decentralized it is, and how do you really encourage and mobilize and help the supply chain to really come in line with the net zero goals? And may we start with John here?
Yeah, I think it's really hard. And we've been on this journey at Trek for the last 4 or 5 years. And we had a meeting in my office maybe 3 months ago. And we looked at our Scope 1 emissions, our Scope 2 emissions, and our Scope 3 emissions. And Scope 3 is all the things that we make. And we came to the conclusion that when you take a look at Scope 1 and Scope 2, it's only 3% of Trek's carbon footprint. 97% of our footprint is what we make. And so that's where we're going to have to really look at new and different strategies in order to meet our sustainability goals. And we're for sure going to have to work with our partners in order to make those goals achievable. And I just want to say, yesterday I was at Giant, and I was really impressed by what I saw. I saw a bunch of solar panels. I saw a whole new waste treatment facility that was super impressive, and I saw a company that wasn't greenwashing, that was really focused on changing the way they do business. That's how Trek gets to net zero, is by working with a lot of suppliers to create different products. I also want to say we went to a smaller supplier, we went to Glory Wheel, and I was blown away by what their plans were, what they've already done, but more importantly, what they're going to be doing in the future. So I think if you take a look at the bicycle industry, it's not just one company, it's everybody playing. It's everybody having a plan. It's everybody taking it super seriously, because I think you can do good for society and you can make a profit at the same time. And what we need is we need more leadership. And when people see that, we'll get a lot more friends to come along for the ride.
Yes, I love the pun, come along for the ride. And so, Beat, if you could contribute on that, how can we work together with the global supply chain to decarbonize?
Obviously, we are not producer ourselves, so we are working with many partners around the world, not only in the bicycle industry, but also in sporting goods, clothing and shoes. And I think there are some general trends that the industries are working to. But I think all this is also influenced by, obviously, how our economical system in the future will be organized. You know, John made a good comment. In the end, we have also to make profits, so we can invest in new technologies, we can be innovative. I think sometimes we have to be risk taker to go to the goals that we set on ourselves. So there's many questions that probably this forum cannot answer everything, but I think we have to ask many questions. I think the past was not only bad, nobody wants to go back to Stone Age, so I think we have certain comforts and certain luxury things we have today that we don't want to give up. But, you know, in the end, we are also talking here about a development world. And we still have a lot of countries or regions that are not so much developed and that have other problems. And how we can integrate them in this strategy will also be very important so that we can have production places that are environmentally safe and can give a good workplace. So many topics that I don't have all the answers yet.
Well, but these are certainly very important topics that we can continue to discuss on. And next, I would like to invite Mr. Shimano to maybe say a few words. How can we decarbonize the supply chain?
これはですね、島野も非常に、苦しんでます。まあ、今ジョン・バーグも、おっしゃってられましたけども、スコープ3に関してはですね、非常に、範囲が広くなってですね、なかなか焦点が定まらないということで、今島野ではスコープ1と2に集中をして取り組んでます。
Yes, for Shimano, this is quite challenging, quite difficult thing for us as well. And as what John just mentioned, actually, Scope 3 is not really easy to achieve. And so now we're trying to work on better on Scope 1 and 2.
まずですね、日本でできることを始めていこうということで、各拠点のですね、トランスポーテーションを、トラックを利用するのではなくて、電車を使ってみたりですね、船を使ってみたりと、いろんなことで車内の中でのトランスポーテーションというものを考え出しております。
And now what can we do is that we want to propose that in green transportation, actually, bicycle has a role in such green transportation. So we start to discuss to do something internally.
それからですね、サプライヤー、ベンダーさんというものはですね、本社の工場だけを比べてティア1だけで300を超えておりまして、ティア2、ティア3ってなっていくとですね、先ほど申されたみたいに1000ぐらい軽くいってしまうというような状況で、これでこれから何年経ったらどうなるんだろうと、なかなか目見当もつかないということで、まずはティア1の皆様方に島野がどういうことを目指しているかというものをですね、徐々に浸透させように教育活動を始めていってます。
And I think from now on, we start to work on together with our suppliers and vendors. So it's not only for our headquarters. We started to work together with tier 1 suppliers. But I think it takes time and takes efforts to work together with tier 2 and tier 3 suppliers. But it's not easy, but I think no matter how long it takes, we will try to do our best to work together with them.
もちろんそういうのを社内にですね、専門で行う部隊を作って今一生懸命立ち上げたばっかりですので、それを徐々に進めている最中です。
Of course, in our company internally, we just started, but I think we will try to spread out and we'll try to work harder in the future.
Thank you, Mr. Shimano. And now I would like to invite Bonnie to contribute. I know this is a very challenging topic, but Giant Group is really the one that is doing most of the weightlifting for a lot of the leading bicycle players in the world. So I think Bonnie would certainly have a lot of things to say on this topic.
Actually, I think in Giant, we are very optimistic about this issue because we already have bus that cover mostly our tier 2, tier 3 vendors. But for those not in this bus, they are not robust. There are many, maybe very small, tiny vendors. We will at least request them to be legal compliance. As long as they can be legal compliance, it shouldn't be too bad. So I will work with, not I hope everybody in the bus, even if you are not in a bus, request your vendor must at least legal compliance. That will be the first step. If we can do that, I think we have a very bright future.
Thank you. Thank you, Bonnie. Yes, there are really a lot of challenges in front of us. And well, before we close this session, so maybe can we end on a positive note? Can we share from each of your companies if we really want to get serious, you know, from a group perspective, or if you're a vendor, a small company, if you want to really seriously reduce your emissions, reduce your environmental impact, what are the few things that we can start doing on the ground? If we could ask Beat to maybe share a few thoughts with us.
I think first we have to be really critical about things we have done in the past, but I think we all probably already all have done that. And then we need to have realistic goals. And as I said before, this strategy has to be part of the company culture. It's not just a marketing topic, it's really something that our employees are also proud about, to be part of that, and then actually it's a mission where we can achieve our goals. It will take time. Sometimes it also will be costly, and we have to be willing to take this cost, because the costs afterwards will be a lot higher.
Well, thank you, Beat. So we start from small things. And Mr. Shimano, what can we do?
先ほどですね、IKEA の方もおっしゃってられたと思うんですが、うちの祖母が、昔よく言ったのが、日本語で始末しやという言葉がありまして、
刚刚其实听了那个sorry so I got confusing, sorry. So when we just heard of IKEA speech, and she talked about the future. So in the future, my grandmother, she said something. Yeah.
無駄をなくすのが最初の一番の一つのですね、根底にあると私はずっと思っております。スクラップをなくすということがですね、コストもかかりませんし、実際に製造業ということをやっている限りはですね、イノベーションも狙えるということで、一番最初のステップは二酸化炭素を減らす。もちろん再生可能エネルギーを使うだとかそういうこともあるかもしれませんけども、まず誰でもできるっていうことで無駄をなくすということに徹底していただけたら第一歩は進めるのではないかなと思ってます。
So I still remember that in the past, my grandmother said that what can we do is that we try to reduce the waste. You know, if there's no waste, that is very important. So no matter you talk about reduction the CO2 or you want to reduce something, I think this is very important that we have to reduce waste. Even though that now we're trying to think about new technology, innovation, we try to introduce sort of renewable energy. But I think these are all good ways, but the most basic and important things that try to reduce waste that could achieve to our carbon emission.
Thank you, Mr. Shimano. And may we hear from John?
I think if, in order to get serious, something that's worked at Trek is just setting an overall company objective and then challenging everybody in the company. We set an objective about 3 years ago, and in the first year we had 400 to 500 different projects throughout the company. There's a lot of people within your company who want to create a better future for the planet. They want to get involved. They're inspired by this issue. If you provide the leadership and challenge them, they will respond.
So yeah, that's a nice way to encourage the employees. And may we hear from Bonnie how what can we do? What is Giant already doing?
My suggestion will be start to do your internal sustainability audit. You cannot find your lost key if the light is off. So please turn on the lights.
Okay, that deserves a round of applause, I think. Yeah. So turn the lights on, maybe start from working on your sustainability report. And I think I really agree with John when he said, so 10 years from now, the next generation is going to ask you, so in response to the climate emergency and all the crises around us, what did you do? Did you do nothing or did you do something at least? So let us give all the speakers a round of applause.